This is a Reforge reaction, and I will be reacting to Hellblade 2's Norse setting, maybe a double-edged sword, an article by GameRant. I'm a huge Hellblade fan, and apparently they're going to draw comparisons or concerns to God of War Ragnarok. I have not read it yet. This is going to be a raw reaction. We are bringing the reaction content here home on Reforge Gaming, so make sure and hit subscribe and the bell button so you don't miss these reactions or my live streams. So they said, thanks to the global sicky leading to a worldwide current-gen console shortage since their launch, exclusives for both the PS5 and the Xbox Series X and S are relatively hard to come by. Senua's Saga Hellblade 2, the follow-up to 2017's Hellblade Senua's Sacrifice, is confirmed to be an Xbox exclusive, which immediately makes it a rather rare commodity. The game is set to continue the journey of the protagonist Senua as she navigates a mythological Norse setting, not too dissimilar to God of War Ragnarok's. The Norse setting in Hellblade, we know that Ragnarok's Norse. I think the settings will feel very different if you've played either one of the games. This similarity, along with the fact that both are exclusives to their respective platforms, will likely see comparisons drawn between the two, something which Senua's Saga Hellblade 2 developers will probably not want. I actually don't know if this is going to be a thing. I can't see a lot of people saying, oh man, Hellblade and Ragnarok are so similar. One is very much more driven by artistry and psychology, and it's just a very different attempt at a game. And Ragnarok is obviously an action-adventure game. Like, no one compares God of War 2018 to the first Hellblade. I don't know if anybody's ever done that, so I'm not quite sure why they would do that just because they're exclusives. Like, I know people do that. I know people do the whole platform war over the most minor things. So that is, I guess, a possibility that might happen. God of War Ragnarok's release last month took the industry by storm, and a raft of near-perfect review scores was swiftly followed by record-breaking sales for Sony, leading to the game garnering 10 separate nominations at the Game Awards. With its incredibly high production values and levels of polish, it is a formidable title for any game to be compared to. Norse setting aside, Hellblade 2 will likely be a very different game in everything from the mechanics to the narrative, which makes inevitable comparisons even harder to swallow. I think I can appreciate what the author's trying to do here. Like, they know the way that console tribalism sort of goes and works, and people are going to start saying, oh, it's not as good as Ragnarok, like the guys that are big PlayStation fans. I mean, I'm a big PlayStation fan, but I'm also a big Xbox fan, and I'm a huge Hellblade fan. So I can appreciate trying to be like, these games just really shouldn't be compared, even though a lot of people are probably going to want to, purely because of the console exclusivity. At its core, Hellblade Senua's Sacrifice tells a powerful story dealing with real issues such as mental illness and psychosis. The protagonist is a young warrior called Senua who journeys to the realm of Helheim in order to rescue her dead lover's soul from Hela. Standing in her way are a variety of demons and environmental puzzles. The biggest demons, though, are perhaps the ones in Senua's own head. Her psychological issues are apparent from the outset, and they grow in scale as the player ventures further into the world of Helheim. I actually strongly recommend everyone play Hellblade, play the first one, play it with headphones on, and maybe even watch their little documentary that they did. It's pretty incredible, especially the voice acting and the mocap work, and the lead. She was sort of a stand-in from, I believe, their video editing department, and then they slowly realized that she was Senua, and she's won tons of awards. It's well worth a playthrough. As one of the first Xbox exclusives using Unreal Engine 5, release footage of Hellblade 2 has already showcased incredible amounts of detail both in character models and the game's world. Developer Ninja Theory is clearly working hard to ensure Hellblade 2 surpasses its predecessor in terms of how it looks as well as how it plays. From what we've seen, Hellblade 2 does look like it's going to be a graphical tour de force. It's going to be very, very strong, and honestly, a pretty unique title in what they're attempting to do. They're sort of weaving big cinematic moments interwoven with gameplay, and it looked pretty intense, and it looked very, very well done. It was apparently actual gameplay, so we'll see how it ends up running. I've reiterated over and over again my concerns about the Series S, and a game that looks as graphically as strong as this, I would be concerned a little bit about performance. Maybe you'll just have to, deal with the lower frame rate or the lower resolution. With no real details revealed regarding the plot yet, it's not clear yet on where Senua's journey will take her next, but the gameplay trailer revealed last year suggested that there will be more of an emphasis on combat than in the first game, which is a good sign for the franchise's growth. I actually agree with this observation. I did get the feeling that there was going to be more of a focus on combat, and the combat in the first Hellblade is good, but it's not very expansive, and I think it'd be great to see them expand a whole lot more on what Senua can do and what she has to face. Recent times have seen a rise in the amount of video games using a mythological Norse setting. Aside from God of War, Saga, Assassin's Creed Valhalla also explored this at some length, with both franchises sharing many of the same themes and exploring the roles of mythological beings such as Odin and Fenrir. Judging by its predecessor, Hellblade 2 is likely to be much darker than these others, with the game walking a fine line between action-adventure and psychological horror. I actually don't know if I agree with it sort of being in the realm of psychological horror. It was more of like a psychological experiment. It didn't feel... Well, I guess there were some sections that were sort of meant to be sort of creepy and eerie and scary, but I just think that the tone and the story is so much more serious. I don't want people to think it's a horror game. I have played Hellblade probably 3 or 4 times all the way through. I find it always to be very touching, very moving, and very emotional. And I don't want people to think, oh, it's a horror game. I also don't want people comparing it to Ragnarok, because I absolutely loved Ragnarok, and I don't think Ragnarok set out to be anything close to what Hellblade 2 is aiming to be. Microsoft's acquisition of Ninja Theory has ensured that PlayStation owners won't get to play Hellblade 2, at least not for the foreseeable future. I think that's really unfortunate, because of the over-the-shoulder third-person style would be an automatic hit, I think, with the PlayStation audience. People accuse PlayStation of only doing third-person action-adventure games, and yes, they certainly do have a lot of them. I would say it's because they're popular and not everybody wants to play first-person shooters, and they already have a huge foothold in the Call of Duty market with first-person shooters, so I actually think it makes tons of sense for their first-party titles to center around that, and Hellblade would fit right in there. So, as a huge Hellblade fan, I am bummed to see it limited to one platform, and because I want people to enjoy it. I don't think this is a platform-defining game the way that Halo is or the way that God of War is, so I do think it's sort of a bummer to see a title as artistically driven as Hellblade limited to one platform like that. I'm not anti-exclusives, but I hate when I see my really favorite titles being limited in that way. When the one Tomb Raider was limited for 1 year on Xbox, it kind of bummed me out, because it was such a good game, but then it just limited its footprint and its saturation and popularity. While this may frustrate some PS5 fans, Xbox loyalists will just be happy that the shoe is on the other foot for a change. With big Microsoft exclusives like Starfield and Redfall both delayed this year, Xbox Series X owners have to be extremely patient up to this point, while PlayStation have been enjoying the likes of Ragnarok, Ratchet & Clank Rift Apart, and The Last of Us Part 1 Remake. 2023 could well be the year that Xbox exclusives are able to rival Sony's, and Senua Saga Hellblade 2 has a big part to play in this. Hopefully it can be judged on its own merits and avoid unnecessary comparisons. I actually really appreciate that framing, because I tend to agree. I don't want Hellblade to be at the center of a console war. I think console wars are kind of stupid. I think people celebrate a lot of the wrong things and argue about a lot of the wrong things. Fundamentally, I think Hellblade is one of the most unique, most artistically complete games you can play, from the sound design to the story to the subversive nature of what it is to experience psychosis to the actual journey through the game is just beautifully told. The soundtrack, the sound design, the voice acting, the graphics. Very excited to see where this goes, and hopefully it can be a really big win for Microsoft and the Xbox platform, because I, for one, think the Xbox Series X is a great platform, it's a great console, and they could really start to win some points. And people that really enjoyed Ragnarok, I don't want it to turn into that spiteful tribalistic war where they say, oh, Ragnarok was way better or Ragnarok had better sales. I do think Hellblade 2 is in a more challenging position to have that large market share. Number one, there are not nearly as many as Series S's and Series X's in saturation as there are PlayStation 4s and 5s combined. It's a very big market share that Sony has. So I don't think we should be comparing the commercial success of these games, and we certainly should not be comparing the games themselves to each other, because they are setting out to do such different things. They're only similar in that they're both stepping into the Norse world. The execution and the implementation of that mythological presence, as well as the gameplay itself, will end up being very, very different. If you like these Reforge reactions, make sure and subscribe to this channel. We do live streaming here every day, as well as reaction content pretty much every other day. I hope you enjoyed this one. Hit subscribe and the bell button, and I'll see you in the next video.